girl, real talk. This whole "it's new year, time to reinvent myself" trash is not the vibe for 2024. You can find someone who loves you for you, as you are. You don't need to read a stack of self-help books, only eat sad salads, or start meditating at 5 a.m. to be ready for dating. So yeah, my advice is to download Bumble and find someone who embraces you the way you are right now. Let me know how it goes.
Inspired by the life of the savvy and ambitious Colombian businesswoman Griselda Blanco comes a new Netflix original limited series. Griselda tells the story of a devoted mother who, with her lethal blend of charm and relentless savagery, creates one of the most powerful cartels in history. Witness Sofia Vergara's captivating transformation into the godmother of the underworld. Griselda, now streaming only on Netflix.
Welcome to Dear Prudence. I'm your Prudence, Jenée Desmond-Harris. Today we'll be discussing whether it's a good idea to offer to be your platonic best friend's housewife, how to handle a husband who stinks, and what an overachieving eldest millennial daughter can do to find happiness. Joining me today is Cheryl Strayed. She has been called the queen of advice, so I'm 99% sure if you listen to this podcast, you already know exactly who she is. But just in case, she is the author of Tiny Beautiful Things, Wild, Brave Enough, and Torch. Also, Two Women Walk Into a Bar. She originally wrote her Dear Sugar advice column anonymously for The Rumpus until she revealed her identity on Valentine's Day 2012. Tiny Beautiful Things is a collection of her advice from that column, which she now writes in her Substack newsletter. And the book was recently adapted for a series on Hulu starring Kathryn Hahn. Cheryl, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm such a fan, of course, of yours. And I just, I usually do advice alone. So I'm so excited to do it with you.
Well, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about some of these. And before we get started, I want to ask you for one piece of unsolicited advice.
Okay. One piece of this is a hard one because there are so many. I have 10 things that I would like to tell people unsolicited. But the biggest one, what first came to mind is to really err on the side of kindness and generosity as often as possible. And I think the thing that people forget about that when they hear that, they think be nice to other people, which is certainly true. But I think the most powerful thing we can do is be kind to ourselves. And that is, of course, so much deeper than it might sound at first glance. It's about listening to yourself. It's about trusting yourself. It's about believing in yourself. And it's about believing that you deserve love and you deserve that, ability to take the chance to find happiness in your life. So that's my unsolicited advice, Jenée. What do you think?
I feel like that's basically the one sentence summary of all the advice you give, right?
That's right.
You're constantly just reminding people to be easy on themselves and believe in themselves. And we'll get into this more throughout the episode, but listen to themselves.
Well, don't you find, I say this over and over again in my work as Dear Sugar, is that so many of the letter writers, what they're saying to us is, I know this is the right thing, or I know this is the wrong thing. And it's like they're afraid to know it. Yeah. So they've written to us and we say, no, yeah, you're right. This is completely wrong. You deserve better in this relationship, or, you need to make a change, or you're doing okay.
Right. And often I think the very choice to write a letter says so much about how the person's doing and what they know and what they really need to hear. Yeah.
They're putting down on paper or on the computer screen what they already know. And we're saying, you're right.
Exactly. And somehow we get paid for this.
Yeah.
Anyway, Cheryl and I will dive into your questions after a short break. Can't get enough Dear Prudence? Then you should definitely join Slate Plus, Slate's membership program. You'll get to hear me answer an extra question every week just for members. With your subscription, you get ad-free listening across the Slate network and unlimited reading on the Slate site, including all Dear Prudence columns, past and present. Go to slate.com/Prudie Plus to sign up. It's just $15 for your first 3 months. Again, that's slate.com/Prudie Plus. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Around New Year's, we get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of just expanding on what we're already doing right. Maybe you finally organized one part of your space and you want to tackle another. Or maybe you're taking your supplements every morning and now you want to actually eat breakfast too. Therapy helps you find your strengths so you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. Every time my therapy appointment comes up, I think I'm really busy and I don't need to do this. And every time that hour is over, I'm so glad I did it. One thing I'm going to work on this year, developing the self-confidence to listen to my own podcast. I've got to get over that insecurity. I'll update you guys on how it goes. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. Designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out one brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/Dear Prudence today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Dear Prudence. Welcome back. You're listening to Dear Prudence, and I'm here with Cheryl Strayed. Let's get started with our first letter. It's titled, Breadwinner Bestie.
My best friend and I are in our mid-20s and have been friends since we were in first grade. It's relevant to my question that we are both queer women, but not at all attracted to each other. We both live with our parents, but I work full-time, and she is currently unable to due to some health issues. She both keeps busy and contributes to the household by doing nearly all the housework in her parents' house. She genuinely enjoys keeping things just so, and it gives her something productive to do while she isn't working or in school. A while ago, I joked that she would make a great housewife, and she said, I know, right? Last week, it turned out that we were both still thinking about it. We're already planning to move in together when she goes back to school. We have lived together before, and we are compatible housemates. And we've already established that if she isn't working yet by the time she can no longer be on her parents' health insurance, we'll get married so she can be on mine. Neither of us want kids, and neither of us crave a romantic relationship. I dislike housework and feel ashamed that I'm not more motivated to do it. Thinking along those lines, both of us had the same thought. She could be my platonic housewife. Obviously, this is a flexible plan. If we end up moving to different places after she finishes college or has serious relationships, things might change. But I can see myself being truly happy supporting the both of us, as I am passionate about my mid-paying, considerably high-paying, if I get another degree, field. And I think she would be happy keeping house and taking care of pets. We even have similar frugal tastes. I would want her to be financially independent, so we could either combine finances or split my income. Both of those feel fine to me. Is it insane to think that this is a viable option? It feels too good to be true, and yet at the same time, like other people wouldn't get it when we aren't in romantic love. People do this in romantic relationships all the time.
So I found this letter really interesting and refreshing because so many of the letters I receive are from people who are in really awful situations that feel so hard to navigate and can sometimes even feel a little bit hopeless. And here we have someone who's saying, I have a great idea for how to be happy. I've thought about it. It sounds good to me. I've laid out the case. I've addressed counter arguments. Nobody has done anything wrong. And their only question is it insane? So I don't know. I really did find it refreshing. I wonder if you see it the same way.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a kind of positive aspect to it. And the letter writer is really joyously stepping towards something that they think that will be good for both themselves and their friend, which I love. Mm-hmm. Now, the question, is it insane? I think the answer to that is no, but I have a big, bold asterisk next to that.
Okay.
My feeling about this is I love it, and it's too much all at once. Okay. So what my advice would be is, as the letter writer says, this kind of division of labor, we see it a lot in traditional marriages where the partners are romantically involved. On the other hand, it is true that this is a very different setup. Okay. This is a friendship. And as the letter writer says, this won't be something that's forever, probably. There's lots in flux. They're both in their mid-20s, which is very much, they're both still living with their parents, very much at the beginning of things. And so what I would say is proceed with caution and do a little at a time. For example, the heart of this question, I think, is it legitimate for us to live together and for the financial breakdown to be such that, the letter writer, goes off and earns actual money, and my friend, contributes to our living situation by cleaning and cooking and doing the domestic chores. Like, I think that's a nice division. I do think instinctually, Jenée, I feel like the quote unquote platonic housewife is a little demeaning. I know what they mean when they say that, but if I were in this arrangement and I were the one who was the housewife, I would say, I'd rather have this be a more articulated job. And instead of just sort of being expected to stay home and take care of everything, it'd be like, okay, I'm going to do 20 hours of labor a week to keep our home. And in exchange for that, I'll get this amount of money, or I'll get this much off the rent. Maybe I live rent free, something that's more like an agreement. And frankly, I don't even think that's a bad idea to have that kind of agreement in a traditional marriage, if that is the division of labor, that there is an acknowledgement of the work the one doing the domestic labor is doing, so that there is that sense, I guess, of autonomy. If I were the friend in that situation, I would want to be receiving some pay specifically for that work that I'm doing.
Right. The letter writer says people do this in romantic relationships all the time, which is a good point. Also, many people who have this arrangement in romantic relationships end up miserable. I'm encouraged by the fact that they've been best friends for so long.
Yeah.
And they've lived together before. I still think that they would want to almost write a prenup or a contract for this, like you said, with some real detail about how this should work and what happens if it starts to go wrong.
Yeah.
Especially, the letter writer says neither of them crave a romantic relationship. Well, that doesn't mean you can't fall in love on the train one day and decide that you want to move in with someone else. So I think whatever the agreement is should include something about what happens if one of us does fall in love with someone else and wants to live with them or wants them to move in.
Exactly. Articulate what the tasks are, that they both think need to be done, right? When this might end or how it might end. How about you make a sort of agreement or written contract that that you revisit in 6 months. That word crave stood out to me too. And again, because these people are in their 20s, a lot happens in that decade that, your life is in flux. And even if you think what the plan is, the plans change. That's true at any age, but that's especially true at this moment in their lives. I don't want this friendship, which is such a strong friendship, to fall apart because there were all of these assumptions and misunderstandings. I think it's a cool idea, but I think it's also important to acknowledge it isn't a marriage. There are different dynamics at play, and they require more autonomy and more explicit communication. Now, can we talk about this idea of them getting married? Any red flags around that for you?
Divorce is expensive.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one to me. I get the health insurance piece of it, but marriage is tough to get out of. And I much prefer a version of this that's a 6-month contract or a 1-year contract with the option to re-up if it's working for everyone, rather than something that's assumed to be forever. And you have to get out of it with probably a lawyer's help if something goes wrong.
Right. And many, many different things can go wrong. When I was in my 20s and completely broke, working as a waitress, I knew somebody who asked me to marry him for citizenship stuff. And I thought about it. I was reminded of that when I read this letter, because I had that same kind of like, oh yeah, we could just get married and like that'd be fine. And I'll get, some money and, it's all good. And in this case, this letter writer's friend will get health insurance. And I'm so glad I didn't do it, because there's so much more to marriage legally and financially. Any number of things can go wrong. Like you said, when they want to get out of it, there's divorce, but there's also like a divorce with then rights for the spouse. If things do go south, you would have a financial obligation to this friend for maybe sometimes years to come. Also, if you should become ill or die, that friend becomes, as your spouse, your legal next of kin. And, there's just a lot of implications that are very complicated. And I will say, I say this with a whole lot of mindfulness about the horror of health insurance in America, which is, I think is just like an outrageous injustice, of course. But this friend of yours, letter writer, it sounds like doesn't make much money. And when the friend is off the parent's health insurance, I'm going to guess they'd be eligible for, greatly reduced health insurance through the health care marketplace, or like in the state of Oregon where I live, as long as you make under a certain amount, you have the Oregon health plan. Various states have various things for low income people. And it sounds like this friend would qualify. So I guess I'm saying is I understand the need for healthcare. There are probably more elegant and legitimate ways to get it.
Yes, definitely. So that was the one thing that was making me say, okay, if you have to get married, you have to get married. But that's such a good point. You don't have to get married. It sounds like you have a lot of extra money to kind of throw at this situation. So let your friend handle their own health insurance. And if that health insurance is inadequate, your contract or your agreement can include a certain amount of money you'll pay every month in copays or in specialists that aren't covered, or just to make sure they get the care they need. That would be a much better use of your money than the money you could potentially lose if you end up getting married. The other thing that stuck out to me about this, I love the idea of alternative living arrangements. Yeah. I was actually raised for several years in what they're now calling a mommune. So 2 single moms raising their kids together, not just sharing a home, but sharing vacations and responsibilities and meals and everything. And it worked really, really well for a time. I don't think there's as much of a question about whether it can be a great situation as there is about what will other people think about it. And in this letter, I see the letter writer worrying whether other people will judge her or think she's weird. And I think that's going to have to be something that you just let go. If it works for you, it works for you. And part of the calculation can't be what will other people think. So you can do this. You just need to plan for the worst version of it, which is a healthy exercise for both of you.
Yeah. Lovingly plan in advance for all possibilities.
Exactly.
And give it a try. I mean, that's the other thing is like, I think it's really worth trying. As much as we're saying, oh no, consider this, consider that, consider the other thing. I think it sounds good. And big caveat, I really, really, really don't think you should get married. But that aside, I like the other pieces of this plan.
Completely agree. You're listening to the Dear Prudence Show, and when we come back, we'll be reading more of your letters. Stay with us.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Hey listeners, whether you love true crime or comedies, celebrity interviews, news, or even motivational speakers, you call the shots on what's in your podcast queue, right? And guess what? Now you can call the shots on your auto insurance too. Enter the Name Your Price tool from Progressive. The Name Your Price tool puts you in charge of your auto insurance by working just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, then they'll show you a variety of coverages that fit within your budget, giving you options. Now that's something you'll want to press play on. It's easy to start a quote, and you'll be able to choose the best option for you, fast. It's just one of the many ways you can save with Progressive Insurance. Quote today at Progressive.com to try the Name Your Price tool for yourself and join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Girl, real talk. This whole it's new year, time to reinvent myself trash is not the vibe for 2024. You can find someone who loves you for you, as you are. You don't need to read a stack of self-help books, only eat sad salads, or start meditating at 5 a.m. to be ready for dating. So yeah, my advice is to download Bumble and find someone who embraces you the way you are right now. Let me know how it goes.
Welcome back to Dear Prudence. I'm here with my guest Cheryl Strayed to answer your letters, and the next one is titled Missing His Scent.
My wonderful husband of 15 years stopped using soap about 5 years ago. I am all for body autonomy, but this is seriously impacting my ability to get close to him. I used to love the way he smelled and would bury my nose in his neck. It was one of the things that really turned me on about him. But about 4 to 5 years ago, he stopped using soap after reading something about how it can disrupt a body's natural microbiome or something to that effect. The result is that his skin now feels a bit oily, and he constantly smells of low-grade body odor. It's only noticeable when you get really close to him, but I'm the person that gets close to him. He showers every day and is a generally clean person, but I'm starting to get grossed out and don't enjoy our skin-on-skin contact anymore. I love him more than anything and do not want to hurt his feelings, but I would really like him to use soap again. Bare minimum, wash his armpits. Any suggestions?
So stinky spouse questions come up pretty regularly for me. I wouldn't say they're a huge theme, but this is really familiar to me.
Wow.
A lot of people think their spouse stinks. And I always say when I get these, it's so interesting because I know there are relationships in which someone could say, oh my God, you stink. The no soap thing isn't working. Take a shower. And there are relationships in which that would feel impossible and it would feel so mean and cause someone to spiral and feel so hurt. The letter writer would not have written to us if she felt like she could say, please bring the soap back. You know, I'm getting an odor. Can you just handle that? So it's obviously a very sensitive issue, right?
Yes. And I think she absolutely has to do that. I think she has to say, not you stink, but hey, like I understand your concerns about soap, but I've just noticed that, you know, since you stopped using soap, there's this odor that's just not pleasant. And how about we explore other things that you can do, more natural soap? I mean, there's certainly lots of natural soap out there that can be used. Here's the thing about that. Like, I hear what you're saying, and I thought the same thing. You know, like there are relationships. My relationship is one of those where you can say to the person, I love you, but you stink. And in fact, I want to say, Jenée, I feel like, and I laughed with my husband when I read this, because I feel like I actually have firsthand experience with this thing.
Really?
My husband, Brian, wonderful, beautiful man who I've been with for hundreds of years now, who I just adore and love. And he's just the sexiest, most beautiful human on the earth. He, every once in a while, has these natural hygiene ideas. One of them was he went through this little phase where he just thought, you know, deodorant is toxic. And so he showers a lot, but he was experimenting with not using deodorant. And I pretty quickly detected this and inquired about it. And he shared this toxic ideology with me. And I was like, listen, I don't care. Like, I don't care if it shaves 10 years off of our lives. You've got to use deodorant.
Every online conversation I've read about natural deodorants, which I've explored, kind of ends with people saying, well, you just have to get used to the way you smell as a human. It's natural.
No. And I say this with real concern for the letter writer's relationship, because, you know, the minute you start using those words like grossed out and not enjoying skin on skin contact, you know, when you start to be repulsed by your lover, that's doom. That spells doom to me. You could be right that this relationship is very sensitive and it'll be devastating, you know, to the husband to hear the no soap thing isn't working. It could also just be that the letter writer is like very considerate and sensitive and afraid of hurting somebody's feelings. And I think that the rule for me is when you do have to say something honest and hard to somebody and you are afraid of hurting their feelings, which is, you know, I'm always, if I have to say something hard and honest, I'm always concerned about people's feelings. There is a way to be kind and honest at the same time.
Right.
You know, the letter writer can say, I love you. You are the most wonderful person. And I couldn't, you know, be happier with you as my partner. And I'm just feeling like your body odor is turning me away from you. And I don't like it. I love you, but I don't like it. And, you know, sort of take it outside it's not personal. I mean, this, you know, that's the thing too, as I wanted to say is it would be one thing if this person had like a health condition that they couldn't change or help. It would be like, letter writer, you have to live with that and accept it, you know, or not. Right. But in this case, it is a choice that the partner made to not use soap. It is a choice that has consequences. And one of the consequences is his partner is repulsed by him.
Right.
So I think that I would want to know that if I did something that repulsed my partner.
Have the conversation. Save yourself. Save your nose. Your husband and his biome will survive.
I always think about this, like what's the universal unsolicited advice I'd give to everyone? And this is something I sometimes have people do when I teach writing workshops, is write down the one sentence that you're not allowed to say, or say out loud the one sentence that that you believe you're not allowed to say. And, it's just the truth. It's just the truth about something you want or the way you feel about something. And I think that is the way we grow and evolve and make our relationships stronger and better, and the way we grow our own lives as well. Being brave enough to say the one true thing. And obviously sometimes that one true thing is very deep. It's like, I want to be a writer instead of an attorney or whatever. And other times it's like, I love you, but your body odor is turning me away from you. It sounds silly, but it's a radical and necessary truth to share.
Absolutely. This is Dear Prudence. We need to take a break, but when we come back, more letters from you and advice from us. Stay tuned.
Every day, we rise, challenging ourselves to work for what we believe in. At U.S. Border Patrol, protecting our borders is more than a job. It's a calling. Agents answer the call, working together to keep our country and communities safe. If you're ready for a new mission, join U.S. Border Patrol and go beyond. Learn more at cbp.gov/careers.
I'm Jenée, and you're listening to Dear Prudence. Cheryl and I are about to tackle our last question for the day. Cheryl, are you ready?
I am ready.
This letter is titled Bermuda Bound.
I am your quintessential, overachieving, oldest millennial daughter. The trope fits me like my favorite pair of skinny jeans. I grew up in a wonderful middle-class family in a small, close-knit community. Graduated college, own a home, have a great job, and 2 beautiful children. My life on paper is amazing, but to misquote the line from Titanic, I feel like I'm standing in the middle of a crowded room screaming and no one looks up. I feel like no one sees anything but the perfect exterior, so no one bothers to check and make sure that everything behind the facade is okay. Prudie, it is not okay. I'm emotionally, physically, and mentally so burnt out, I can barely convince myself to get out of bed sometimes. My doctor tried treating me for depression, but the side effects were worse than the depression, so we stopped the meds. I also don't have much faith in people to support me, even if I did tell them I'm struggling. I've got anecdotal evidence in spades to back up these feelings. So I tend to internalize quite a bit. My husband is wonderful, but has the emotional range of a teaspoon due to emotional abuse in his childhood, so he's not much help. I carry most of our problems and burdens squarely on my shoulders because I don't trust anyone else to actually help with them. I anticipate having to carry their emotional distress as well, so I just don't bother. I'm worried the mask is going to irreparably crack one day. I've never known anything other than perfection, and I'm well aware this is what everyone else expects from me, but I just can't keep it up any longer. Short of stepping out for lunch one day and not stopping until I get to Bermuda, I don't know how to fix this.
I'm confident that there are a few things you can try before abandoning your family and moving to Bermuda. The thing that jumps out to me in this letter is that the letter writer has really quickly dismissed any possible solutions already. The antidepressant isn't working. I know there are 5 other ones out there. It's so hard, but you've got to try a few of them. Your husband won't be helpful. You could try. Other people wouldn't understand. You carry everyone's burdens. I guess I just want her to consider finding a little bit less hopelessness about the situation. I also feel like this is such a Dear Sugar letter. This is the kind of letter that you're so good at answering. I almost just want to turn it over to you.
Jenée, this letter really, really broke my heart because I can feel and hear how much this letter writer feels at wit's end and feels like they're suffering. And it just pains me. And, but the good news, like the thing that I wanted to shout, open my window and shout to the street so the letter writer could hear me is that, they say that they are, afraid that they can't keep up this act of perfection anymore. And what I say is thank goodness, because that act is what is killing you, dear heart. Yes. Don't go to Bermuda, literally, as Jenée says, but go there metaphorically. Go there metaphorically. And here is what I mean by that, is that, your letter is full of all of these anxieties about, what's going to happen if the mask slips, what's going to happen if you can't keep this act up, who are you going to rely on if you can't be perfect anymore? All of those things that you think are keeping you safe, the mask, the perfection, the feeling that you have no one to rely on but yourself. Those are the things that are hurting you and harming you, dear heart. Yeah. They really are. And this is deep work. Your letter, you talk a lot about other people, right? People rely on you. People let you down. People can't be trusted. People don't have emotional range. And I say this with all the love in my heart, this is a you problem. This is not a them problem. Because I promise you, as somebody who is not perfect, who does not wear a mask, I can tell you is once you step into the world and say, this is who I am and I'm not perfect and I'm all these things, you're going to find that you've been wrong about these assumptions you've made about others, and right. Maybe your husband will or will not step forward and be that person you can trust. But even if he doesn't, other people will. I mean, I think that so much of your anxiety about that perfection, you're projecting onto others is what I'm saying.
Right. It's actually a lot easier to think no one else shows up. No one else has emotional range. No one else is there for me. No one else supports me than it is to think I'm not happy. How do I change my life so I'm happy?
Yes. And that word perfection being used so many times in this short letter really makes me worried, because that's the other thing is maybe part of your projection is, just because people haven't helped you perfectly, just because people haven't said exactly what you thought they should say or you wanted them to say, doesn't mean that they weren't there for you. Like the minute you start accepting your own imperfection, which I even hate to use that word because I just mean your own humanity, you start to see like, okay, that, the friend who didn't do this or say this, but then did that and said that, like, that's going to be good enough. Or that's, none of us are perfect. And, masks are the things that isolate us from not only others, but from our own humanity. And so, I think a deep journey is required and a deep undoing. Maybe, you start, as Jenée recommended, trying other antidepressants. If one doesn't work, there are others out there. But I really think that is not going to be the final key to your trip to Bermuda, your metaphorical trip to Bermuda. It's going to be that you start to really have some understanding of the ways that actually aspiring to perfection or believing yourself to be perfect are damaging you. And I think this is so helpful to see a therapist to kind of undo essentially the story that you've told yourself all your life about your need to be perfect.
It's also worth thinking about that you're pretty miserable right now. So I understand that you're afraid that if you open up to someone or tell someone how you're feeling or ask for help, you might not get the result you wanted. But things can't get that much worse. At least you would have the information, right? At least if you opened up to your husband and he said, I don't get it. I was abused as a child. I can't deal with this. Or you opened up to your friend and they said, I'm really disappointed in you for not being perfect. By the way, I don't think people are going to do that. I think people will be better than you think they will be. You're not going to feel that much worse than you feel right now. I think it's worth taking the chance. It's worth giving people the opportunity to be there for you. And I think taking off the mask and not being perfect and being more vulnerable actually makes it easier for people to be there for you.
Oh, for sure. I mean, how are you there for somebody who is always saying they have it all together? It's really hard to do. I mean, it really is, because it's like, no, I've got it covered. I'll do it. I do it best, so I'll do it. And, I understand, like I relate to this, that impulse, but I will say every time that I've done that, I end up feeling like like this letter writer, like this sense of like, oh, this bitterness. It's just me. Nobody will ever be able to kind of give me what I need. And it's really because you're not letting them do that. And I think too, like when I said earlier, Jenée, like this story, I talk about this a lot as Dear Sugar and my work as Dear Sugar, is like that we're constantly writing the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. And this person, this letter writer, has told themselves this story about perfection and the need to be perfect so long that I really sense this is somebody who doesn't really know who they are. If the only person you can be is the perfect person, that's impossible. None of us are perfect. We're gloriously imperfect. And so, when I say run off metaphorically to Bermuda, I mean, and I say take a journey, I mean really actively do things that change the pattern that has allowed this story to be the only one you tell yourself. Try things that you're not going to excel at. Be vulnerable with people and see what happens. Maybe actually take a trip or a journey that will allow you to see yourself in a new way. Those are all ways that we learn how to expand our ideas about who we are and what's possible.
I think it starts with reaching out to one person, whether it's her husband or a friend, and just saying, I'm really not okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to explain everything, but just say, I'm really not okay. I'm going through it. And that's the beginning of the conversation. I know that it's scary because I think it's addictive and comfortable to be the kind of person who says, I'm the only one who has my shit together. I'm the only one who can be counted on. No one else can do it like me. You're going to be giving something up by giving up that identity. But I'm really, really hopeful that there are people in your life who are going to show up the way you want to.
Yeah.
And by the way, who know you're not okay. They know. They know. So if you can put it on the table and say it, you might actually be able to get like a little bit of support or understanding or help.
Absolutely. And I do want to say, I think talking to a professional, a therapist, would be very helpful because, that would be somebody who really does have some expertise. I mean, like that's the thing, is you're not alone. There are a lot of people who are going to really relate to this letter, who are going to say, this is exactly how I feel too. I know it because I get letters like this as Dear Sugar, and I have people in my life who I think have gone through this struggle themselves. And, really having somebody who can help you in very practical ways do the deep work that's going to be required to step into your beautiful, glorious, glorious, imperfect self.
All right, those are all the questions we have for this week. It's been fun and, as always, hopefully helpful. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Oh, it has been a blast to be here talking to you. Invite me back anytime today. I'm happy to give advice with you, dear Prudie.
Oh, I'm going to take you up on that. Go to CherylStrayed.com and subscribe to her newsletter, where she answers questions from people seeking her advice. You can also follow her on Instagram and Twitter at Cheryl Strayed. Do you need help getting along with partners, relatives, coworkers, and people in general? Write to me. Go to slate.com/Prudie. That's slate.com/PRUDIE. The Dear Prudence column publishes every Thursday.
If you'd like to hear your question answered on the podcast, we're looking for letter writers who would be comfortable recording their questions for the show. You can stay anonymous.
Dear Prudence is produced by Se'era Spragley Ricks and me, Jenée Desmond-Harris, with a special thanks to Maura Currie. Editorial help from Paola De Verona. Daisy Rosario is senior supervising producer, and Alicia Montgomery is Slate's VP of audio. I'm your Dear Prudence, Jenée Desmond-Harris. Until next time.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.